This is your host, Bokeh Podcast host, Nathan Holritz, here to try a bit of an experimental project. This is the Bokeh Podcast, yes, but more specifically and experimentally, this is the Bokeh Podcast Morning Show, coming to you live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and a bit of an experiment. As I said, I've had this idea for a little bit that we have I would tend to say old school morning show, call-in morning show, like you used to listen to on the radio on the way to school or work. I know they still have them, but it seems like something from the past. As far as I know, though, we don't have anything specific to the photography industry. And especially right now, as most of you are probably hanging out at home, thanks to the coronavirus, why not put together a show that might bring a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of education, and ultimately, hopefully, just bring us all together as a photography community. So we're going to try this for at least 1 or 2 episodes. I'm going to get some feedback from you if you like it, if you find it helpful, entertaining, or otherwise. Awesome. And the format's going to be relatively simple. I do want to start with a bit of news, industry news or industry-related news. We'll go there. And then we'll usually have a theme for each of the days or each of the episodes. And I'd love for you to call in and share your thoughts. Now, that call-in number, and I'm going to put this up on the screen for anybody that might be watching the live Facebook feed at facebook.com/Bokeh Podcast. We'll be pushing the video version of this live to our Bokeh Podcast Facebook page. It is live currently. If you're watching in, don't hesitate to comment and say hello. But we'll be pushing it there. The number is 423-451-6283. Now, don't call in quite yet. We're going to get into some news, and then we'll open up for phone calls in a little bit. But would love to hear your thoughts, your best tips right now during this kind of crazy time. We're at home. There's some apprehension about how this is not only, of course, affecting our businesses right now, but how it may affect our businesses in the next month and the next couple of months, especially depending on how long it takes for all of this to blow over or largely blow over. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts, your suggestions, your ideas about how to best manage your time right now to not get debilitated with fear, with apprehension, but instead focus on the proactive. How can I best utilize my time during this extra time that I have for the sake of my business, for the sake of my personal life, or just to catch up on shows for that matter. So anyway, and Haylee, who produces the Bokeh Podcast, just commented and said, hello. Hey, Haylee, thanks for chiming in. And for those of you listening in, watching, don't hesitate to do so. Again, facebook.com/Bokeh Podcast. Let's actually jump to the news. And you're going to notice you'll probably see me holding my phone here. We're going to get some calls in a little bit and making sure, too, that I'm checking messages from anybody that might be messaging me in relation to the show. But let's just jump to the news this morning. A few things, of course, with the coronavirus going on right now, Nikon and Canon services, at least the normal services that they offer to their clients, have been kind of temporarily discontinued, if you will. And DP Review, if you go to dpreview.com, by the way, we'll link to all of these articles in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com, the morning show, the Bokeh Podcast Morning Show. But if you on DP Review, the headline is Nikon temporarily suspends repairs to help reduce the transmission of COVID-19. And the letter from the president, of course, I won't read the whole thing, but he's saying we're experiencing unprecedented circumstances around the world, and thoughts and prayers for those affected. Proud of the dedication of the team. But at this point, the services have been kind of minimized. The services being offered have been minimized. The services, and he says Nikon Incorporated has taken steps to ensure the safety of its employees by instituting office closings and remote work strategies in line with state and federal government mandates. Sorry, fumbling around there with my words. These include the temporary closure of our repair service centers to prioritize the safety of our workforce and help limit the spread of the virus. I think I was actually getting this confused with the Canon article, actually, which I'll share next. So Nikon, it looks like, has shut down all their service centers. DP Review also shared that Canon USA closes its service centers in California, Illinois, New Jersey, And so we'll link to those articles in the show notes. If you go to bokehpodcast.com, you'll see the episode thumbnail there. You can click on it and read the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. So just a bit of a heads up, especially for you at Nikon. With Nikon, is it NPS, Nikon Professional Services, and CPS, Canon Professional Services? Anyway, they're at this point temporarily suspending services. So hello, by the way, to Golritz Farmani. She says, hi, Nathan Haylee. Lovely to see you live here, and apologize in advance if I'm needing to go. Don't want to be rude. You've always been wonderful. We'll surely be here more and catch up. Thanks millions again for all the good info in today's update. Absolutely. Thanks so much for commenting and sharing with us. And please, again, for those of you listening in or watching live, don't hesitate to comment and get ready to give me a call too. Probably about the bottom of the hour, maybe a little bit later. Feel free to give me a call at about 9:30 Eastern, 9:40 Eastern. The number you should see right here rolling across the screen, old school style, 423-451-6283 for this Bokeh Podcast live morning show. Let's keep going with the news, though. A few more items. And this is coming to you from SLR Lounge, SLRlounge.com. Maybe too much caffeine, right? And the headline is Canon EOS R6 rumored specs 4K video, dual cards, and up to 20 frames per second. So, and I think they even allude to this in the article. You know, it's a funny thing during times like this where we have extra time and we want to maybe avoid focusing on the negative. What do? You spend time reading about or watching things that you enjoy. And man, I don't know about you, but one of the reasons that I got into photography in the first place, this might be embarrassing actually, was the gear. I mean, the gear was so much fun. I will admit, I'm not as much into gear anymore. Just about as exciting as it gets for me is, I don't know if you can see this if you're watching live. Right now, you can, this little, what do they call this? A shock mount right here for my mic. That's about as exciting as it gets for me when it comes to equipment. Nonetheless, Canon, there are rumors about an EOS R6 coming out. If you shoot Canon or are interested in Canon, the specs are pretty crazy. And again, we'll link to this article from SLR Lounge in the show notes. But 20 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor, 12 frames per second mechanical, 20 frames per second electronic shutter bursts, and then 4K at 60p, full HD at 120p. Of course, if you want any kind of slow motion at great resolution, this might be the camera for you. Dual card slots, because heaven forbid we don't have at least two these days. It's so funny. I don't remember the camera that came out. Was it Nikon's that they released in the last year or so? And there was this uproar because how dare you only release a camera with one card slot, which is hilarious. But understandable, but hilarious at the same time. It's funny what photographers get excited about or upset about. No top-down screen, lower resolution EVF than the EOS R5. Build quality not as good as the EOS R5. This is a statement, at least from the SLR Lounge. So we'll see. But nonetheless, those specs for resolution, especially with the video, are kind of interesting. If you're a Canon shooter, maybe make sure that you check that out. And that's a little bit of gear news for you today, if you want to geek out a little bit on gear. So next headline for you. And again, all these, we'll put links to these articles in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com from TechCrunch, TechCrunch.com, TechCrunch.com. Apple Music adds a personalized playlist of happy songs to cheer you up, plus a work from home mix. If you're a little bummed out right now with COVID-19 and you need a bit of a boost, and you're an Apple Music user, I don't know. It'd be interesting actually to do like a hands up survey, from our listeners, our viewers. Which music service do you use? I personally use Spotify and have at this point really for years. Apple, I wasn't real stoked on the way, well, first of all, their service, the subscription or lack of subscription service, I guess, initially. Of course, they offer one now. But I love the interface with Spotify. And of course, with the Bokeh Podcast, we'll occasionally share the Bokeh Podcast episodes, thumbnails directly to our Instagram feed. It's really fun. Nonetheless, Apple has created a personalized playlist of happy songs if you need those. If you're on Spotify, let's see. So I actually, if I pull up Spotify right now, I mean, this is something that Spotify has done for some time, right? And y'all comment in, let me know if this is something that you take advantage of. But they've got this whole section called Mood. And if you're watching the video feed, I'm holding this up, you can see that section called Mood. And you've got Mood Booster, all the feels, happy hits, confidence boost, happy beats. In fact, I'm going to have to turn one of these playlists on a little bit later just to get that extra boost. But nonetheless, if you need some mood boosters and you're not an Apple Music fan, go to Spotify and play from one of those lists. Maybe we can even find out or figure out Haylee, who's producing the show. Maybe we can figure out a way to link to a couple of this playlists from Spotify in the show notes too. If you need a bit of a boost today, take advantage of that. And then maybe for the last news article today, I want to jump to this right here from slrlounge.com. I don't know why I can't say that fast this morning, but SLR Lounge, they actually have an interesting article titled or headline tips on how to retool your business during the current downtime. So I know we're going to get at least a few people hopefully calling in that are going to share their suggestions about how to use this time that we have right now as we're kind of stuck at home. But we'll link to this article in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com, tips on how to retool your business during the current downtime. Just a couple of tips to throw out there. And of course, I'm not going to read the whole article on air, but some of the subheadlines. What's the actual correct term for that? Tip number 1, reevaluate your contracts. Tip number 2, take stock of product offerings. And the list goes on. I'm not going to give it all away. We'll link to the article in the show notes. This article is written by David Crew at SLR Lounge. So shout out to David. But we'll put all of these news articles in the show notes. And by the way, comment whether now while we're live or after the fact. Let us know what news you like to hear most. Is it tech news? Is it tips and tricks for photography? Is it gear news or information? Of course, a lot of this comes out, and I follow a number of photography blogs and use them as resources just to kind of keep up with what's going on in the industry. And so I'm going to share some of those on these live shows. And yeah, Haylee's actually commenting. She says, I use it when I can't think of what I want to listen to. Yeah, that's one of the brilliant things about playlists. I mean, of course, Spotify, again, brilliantly, it's like, how can we get them to spend more time here? Let's throw together some playlists. Of course, we have access to millions of songs there on Spotify, so they made it easy for us. She said we can embed them into the show notes. So thanks, Haylee. Shout out to Haylee, who produces the Bokeh podcast. By the way, if you don't listen to the podcast, we're putting out content like crazy right now. I hope it's not overwhelming. If you go to Bokeh, Bokeh podcast.com, you can not only see what the most recent episodes are, but you can actually search by categories too. To kind of delve into the content that we have as well. So you see the screen right there, or on the screen rather, if you're watching the live video feed, Bokeh Podcast Morning Show, 423-451-6283. And I would love to hear from photographers out there. If you have a best tip or a best suggestion for how to best utilize your time during COVID-19, what seems like a little bit of craziness, but let us know your thoughts. How do you best use your time during this extra time? And I want to go ahead and just kind of throw out a couple ideas myself too, just as some suggestions. Really, it all centers around something that I alluded to a few minutes ago, which is this notion of proactivity. How do we, it's easy to get fixated on what is going on right now, especially if you spend too much time reading the news headlines. And frankly, I've been kind of pissed off at the media at large, the way that they're portraying this, not because it's not serious, not because they don't need to portray that. Oh, we've got a call coming in right now. Give me 1 second. We'll come back to that. We got a call actually coming in from, could this be Haylee Gaffin of the Bokeh podcast?
Oh, it might be.
Perfect. Haylee, shout out again to Haylee. For anybody that doesn't know, Haley's actually been working with Photographers Edit on our digital marketing side for, wow, it's coming up on, what is it, 3 years now, Haylee?
Yeah, almost. In July, it'll be 3 years.
Okay, so, I mean, this is, Haley's been putting up with me for 3 years is really the way that we should frame that. But she's also been producing the podcast. And as I was alluding to earlier, we've been putting out a lot of content. What are we at now, Haylee? Something like 380 plus episodes recorded?
Yeah, about that. I think we have 355 published as of this morning.
Okay, so 355 episodes, incredible amounts of content. And what we're working on right now is figuring out ways to kind of repurpose that, because I do have a lot of interviews coming up. We're going to be putting out a lot of podcast episodes. I know that realistically, most of you probably can't keep up unless you're just listening all day, every day. But we want to make sure that you can easily find information that's relevant to you. So we're going to continue to work on that, largely thanks to Haylee and the work that she's doing. If you just go to Bokeh, B-O-K-E-H podcast.com, you can see more there. Haylee, do you have some, what's your best tip, I guess, very simply, for managing time most effectively during, shall we call it, the corona?
So I've actually seen a ton of people asking like how they can be making money right now in tons of Facebook groups, because if you can't get out and you can't shoot, you can't make money. But one thing that I would consider using your time for is reviewing all of your subscriptions, because I had not done this in a while. And then I went through and looked at like all of the social media platforms, scheduling tools that I had signed up for and no longer used, that were, $5 and $10 a month or $15 a month. And if you have all the streaming services, like, this is the time you don't actually need all of those. You can cut back all of those and just use Netflix or just use Hulu and focus on that one for 1 month, and then resubscribe when you have income coming in. So I would use my time to evaluate where you can save money versus like trying to come up with ways to make money this second.
That's a really interesting idea. I love that. Yeah, because there's a bit of a freak out going on. Understandably, I think for a lot of business owners, it's like, wow, I can't generate revenue right now, or at least not the normal way. I can't be shooting. But in the meantime, they're spending money, even if it's little bits of money at a time, that they could actually be saving. So how did you, were you just going through your email inbox to see what subscriptions you were being reminded of? Were you looking at a service like Mint, where you can just scan through and look at the transactions and find out what services you're subscribed to?
Yeah, so I use Mint personally on my like personal expenses, but then in my business, I went through QuickBooks and I just took a look through every transaction that I had made in the last 3 months. So if it's like a quarterly subscription, we're about to approach the next quarter, so it's going to come out. So that's how I did it, and just pulled each of those and decided, like, can I do this manually for now if I need to, or can I jump back to the free version of whatever it is for the time being?
That's a really great tip, but I have to ask you too. So as you're saving money and you're narrowing down your choices of subscriptions, particularly when it comes to streaming, what is your go-to show right now? Like, what are you actually catching up on if you have time?
So I just started Ozark with my husband. He's watched it already.
Okay.
Season 3 just came out, and so I just started. I think we just finished season 1 last night.
It's kind of dark, isn't it?
It's so dark. It's taken me like a whole month to watch season 1. Otherwise, I'm rewatching Grey's Anatomy for like the 10th time.
Okay. All right. Yeah. It's always nice to have like the comfortable show or movie to go back to. There is something about that. Like for me, it's Good Will Hunting is one of the ones that I've probably watched countless times, and I could go back to again, even tonight, and enjoy it yet again. But I appreciate you calling in. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and wish you best of luck, not only dealing with me, but with all of your so-called extra time during this craziness.
Have a good day, Nathan.
All right, you too. All right, awesome. Well, I appreciate the call in from Haylee. And again, numbers scrolling at the bottom of the screen if you're watching the video version of this, 423-451-6283, the Bokeh Podcast Morning Show. And I'd love to hear from you. 423-451-6283. We're going to do this episode today, and then we'll probably run another episode. We're going to call it Friday, this Friday, March 27th at 9 a.m. Eastern again. So get your phones ready for that. If you're not ready today, you're like, oh, I'm just barely waking up because I got to sleep in, hashtag coronavirus. I get it. Take advantage of the time, get some extra rest. I've been personally kind of going crazy, not in a bad way, like going crazy as in taking advantage of the time to create tons and tons of content. And while we're waiting for the next caller, really I think, I found myself, I think last Monday it was, so a week ago Monday, just, it was easy to fixate on what was going on. Again, you read the news headlines, and what I began to say earlier is that the media is highlighting what's going on in such a way that you'd think the world is ending. And of course, the reality, it's not. This is extremely serious, and people are unfortunately dying as a result of it. But the way the media portrays it all, it's almost like they're giddy at the idea that they can put some other headline out there to make people freak out. And I know there's a healthy, if you will, balance between making sure that there's awareness so that we are taking the actions necessary to help minimize the spread of the virus. And that's a positive thing. But at the same time, I would love to see a balance of some kind, at least throw some encouragement into the mix as well, right? I don't know about you all, but that's regardless of Corona or not. The media tends to highlight the negative rather than the positive, and you end up just kind of feeling like the world is this terrible, terrible place, sadly. And the reality is it's not. I think that there's an opportunity to start a good news network. This is another idea I've had for some time. Maybe I'm going to do it at some point in the near future. Looking kind of in contrast to many of these media news outlets where all you just see is these negative headlines all the time. We can focus on the positive headlines, all the good that is going on in the world. And amidst craziness like this and sadness, as we've seen, even during this time dealing with the coronavirus, there's still positive to be seen in it. And I think we can all find encouragement in that. Would love to see more of that. So nonetheless, if you have ideas for the Good News Network, send those suggestions my way. Comment on Facebook. If you go to facebook.com/Bokeh Podcast, which is where this live stream is going out, you can find more information there. Anyway, I know I'm kind of jumping around little tangents here, but proactivity. So as you have this extra time right now, you're sitting at home, you're probably responding to clients, a few clients here and there. I hope maybe you even have a few inquiries coming in. Clients that are interested in maybe getting their portrait taken later this year, getting married later this year. Maybe you're talking about rescheduling. But as you have extra time, think about what you can do creatively to add value to your clients, your existing clients, or your potential clients. Think about where your brand is at currently. Things that you could do to improve your brand position in your market, how you're effectively communicating that brand position. What is the message that your business represents? What areas financially could you improve on? I mean, it was great to hear from Haylee and her suggestions about how to go about this process of analyzing even the simple expenses there in your business, personal or in your personal life for that matter. How can you cut expenses? And it's funny how $10, $20 a month can ultimately add up, right? That's a chunk of money at the end of the day. How can you save those things? But do a financial analysis. And if you're not currently set up in financial software like QuickBooks Online, that makes it easy for you to see transactions, see your business expenses, see the revenue generation and where you can improve in that realm. Make sure that you spend this time to go ahead and get set up with a system like that. It's not only going to make it easier for you to manage your taxes, sales tax, quarterly taxes, income taxes, but you can, of course, connect with your accountant, potentially hire a bookkeeper to help you manage it as well. But it's actually really easy to use, easy to set up. And then you can be a little bit more aware as a business owner. So looking at your brand, number one, looking at your finances, proactively managing your finances. Look at your product offerings as well. Is there an opportunity to have, to for example, take a look at the products over at Kiss Wedding Books? My friend Sean Austin at Kiss Books, KISS.US, Kiss.us, pretty brilliant. They offer a beautiful product line that is made up in Indiana, my home state, actually. I'm originally from Kokomo, Indiana, tiny little city outside, about an hour outside of Indianapolis. By the way, home of, or the home of the author of Clifford the Big Red Dog. Little random fact for your day. I'm from Kokomo. But anyway, Sean lives outside of Indianapolis, and they produce the books there. I've been to their, what's the correct term? Factory? It's not a factory. Anyway, where they produce the books. And it's a really cool setup. And he is leading a really cool team there at KISS. But take a look at KISS and some of these other products, these physical products that you sell to your clients, or if you're not offering them currently, take this as an opportunity to do a little bit of research to find that next big thing that you can offer to your clients so that you can generate a little bit of extra revenue. And on that note, if you're already offering various products, prints, albums, or otherwise, is there an opportunity right now to offer discounted products to your clients in order to generate some extra revenue? Something else to think about. I'm actually doing a podcast interview later today with Katie Rousseau, and she's a business consultant. She's going to be talking with us about how to think about pricing during times like this, because naturally we want to generate a little bit of extra revenue, right? So it's something to think about. So look for opportunities to potentially generate a bit of extra revenue, selling some discounted products to your clients from past portrait sessions. Maybe they never ordered products. Follow up with them, say, hey, look, I've got this right now available at a discounted rate. Would you be interested? Consider opportunities to generate a little bit of extra revenue. Take some time as well to look at systems. That's something else that you're going to want to consider, because there is, I know that systems and workflow can be a bit of a geeky topic, but at the end of the day, if we want to have a life as business owners, beyond this extra time that we have sitting at home because of the coronavirus, it's important to put the systems in place. I mentioned earlier QuickBooks Online, the amount of time that you'll save if you use a system like that, not having to manually enter information into a spreadsheet, for example. And I know that may sound kind of archaic, but photographers, at least based on conversations I've had, photographers still use those kinds of tools. And it's not that they're bad, they're just not as efficient. And so my suggestion is to pick and choose and ultimately develop efficient systems, whether it's financial management, or you're looking for opportunity to improve your communication workflow. I mean, that's email, social media, text messaging, coming up with better systems for that purpose. And what else? Task management and project management. My friend Andrejka, who, by the way, we may actually hear from this morning. Andrejka jokes with me about sticky notes. I've given her a hard time for not using a digital task management system, and I just got a text from her the other day, and she's like, "I'm back to the sticky notes," and I love to give her a hard time about that. But maybe you need to improve the way that you're managing information, the tasks and projects that you have on a daily and weekly basis with your business. So working on improving that, maybe actually setting up a CRM system. If you don't have a CRM system like Tave or Honeybook, or 17 Hats or Sprout Studio, some of these services that enable you to effectively manage the relationships that you have with your clients, and also be able to take care of them more effectively. If you've not taken the time to do that, go ahead and do it. There's opportunity to do that, and you can make that time right now. Instead of sitting around watching Netflix all the time, you can do that for part of your day. Go ahead and make sure that you try to do that. Let's see. Oh, it looks like somebody tried to call in. They were getting a busy signal. Let's see what we can do here. I've got Rich, who is trying to reach out. So I'm going to actually call him back. Let's see if we can get him on the line. Old school. Here we go. The Bokeh Podcast Morning Show. Hey, Rich.
What's up, man? How are you?
You're live and on the air.
Oh, wow. Did I win the concert ticket? The 98 caller?
Oh, man, that's actually a great point. I think from the next episode, we're going to have to come up with a way to give away something. I don't know if we do tickets or maybe a piece of a subscription to something or a piece of camera gear, maybe not too expensive. What do you think?
Yeah, stuff like or maybe some toilet paper. I don't know.
Actually, that's not a bad idea either. I know that I think you're on the way maybe to a job this morning, which, I mean, kudos to you that you still are able to shoot. But do you have a tip or a trick for our listeners as to how they can best manage their time while they're home due to the coronavirus?
Oh man, that is a really good question. I think any time that we're put into a new situation, I always tell people, like, when you first get married or when you first become a parent, you get put in these situations that you've never been put into before, and you quickly realize that there's aspects or areas of your life that you got to work on that you had no idea that you had this problem in your life, and of your personality. And like, I didn't know how selfish I was until I got married, right? And because my whole life I had to deal with just with me, right? So in this situation, like, this is a situation none of us has been in before. We're like where we're being isolated, and we're alone, and we're being forced to be alone. And so a lot of times we have to combat. We combat some of the things in our lives we don't want to face by being around people, by distracting ourselves. I say, this is a good time of reflection. Of figure out exactly being open-minded and wanting to know more about, like, what's happening inside. Why am I feeling this way? Is there anything that I need to self-reflect on and work on in my life? And so. Yeah.
That's actually a great suggestion. I mean, it can be tough to sit in the silence, whether, literally or virtually, when we're at home and we're kind of overwhelmed with a lot of the negative news that's coming out. Maybe the last thing that somebody wants to do is to go inward and see if there's opportunity, not only, as we were talking about, to improve your business, but also to improve on a personal level. I love this idea of just sitting and being and considering where there might be room for improvement. What initiated this for you? Right? Are you one to, like, sit and meditate, or was it just a matter of you had extra time, so you began thinking of certain areas that you could improve? What was that like?
Yeah, I guess I'm still in the midst of it. But but it's really interesting to be at home a whole lot, even with your family. And I personally am with my family a whole lot, but this is even more so, And if someone gets annoying to me, obviously right now I'm in the car heading away from my family, but for the last week or so, we've been stuck with each other, right? We can't run away. We can't go be with friends. We can't do a poker night with the guys. We can't do this. We can't do that, right? We can't go to the movies. And so, and we're really isolated as far as, like, we're like, we can't even go to the park now, right? All these things are being taken away from us. And so, so
I guess in that situation, it kind of forces you to consider, why is it that I'm annoyed? Why is it that I'm frustrated? Where is this coming from? And then kind of dig into that, right?
Right. Exactly. Like my patience levels or even things that, like, I'm seeing in my kids, where their aspects of their personalities that they may not even be seeing that's coming out right now. Because obviously we've never been in a situation where, like, hey, if you guys get bored, we go to the YMCA. If you guys get lonely, we can have a friend over, or we can do this, we can do that, right? So all these, and so so it's just kind of like being able to steer and guide even our kids during a situation of like, hey, this is what is maybe happening. This may be what you're feeling right now, and let's kind of work through this together instead of just like,
escaping. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's so easy, and when we actually do have the freedom to move around, it's easy to walk away. It's easy to go to some activity in the name, and we could even say, "Oh, I need to go work out at the gym." The reality is, in some ways, maybe we're escaping dealing with something at home. I think this is, first of all, I appreciate the vulnerability on your part, the transparency, and I think it's also a really great recommendation for all of us, myself included, even just to take 5, 10, 15 minutes, just sit and be and look for opportunity, especially if we're feeling things. There's a tendency in our culture and even in our industry to say, I am, this personality type, or I am this Enneagram number, or I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert. And photographers have a tendency of just kind of stopping at that label, but not actually looking at the psychology behind it. So somebody could argue, well, I'm frustrated in the situation because that's just my personality. I think I think that's a bit of a simplistic way to look at things. And I love the self-reflection that you're encouraging for everybody. So I appreciate you sharing that. Before I let you go, though, really quick, is there a favorite show right now that you guys are watching while you have this extra time?
Oh man! So we have introduced our kids to the extended version of the Lord of the Rings, and I know those are PG-13. I didn't think that my 9-year-old would be able to handle it, because I mean there is a lot of war in those movies. People's heads getting chopped off. But we're also allowing them to watch behind the scenes and how the movie is made, and this is the orcs. This is a guy being dressed up as an orc, And so it's been really, really fun, and they've been handling it really, really well. They absolutely love it. So seeing like a true epic of an adventure,
Right. Well, and that's probably about the longest possible movie you could find out there. So it's probably a good suggestion too. While we have all this extra time, Rich.
They're about 4 hours long each. So it'd be they're 12 to 14 hours.
Whoa!
Get into the bonus features. The bonus features are about an hour to 2 hours a piece, and there's 3 or 4 of them. So you can really dive into the history of Lord of the Rings and J.R.R. Tolkien, and so we actually watched the Hobbit trilogy in the last 3 days. So now they're just absolutely loving it. So,
wow. Okay. If anybody's looking for extra content and you want the longest possible movies, pull up The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. Rich, thanks so much for calling in. We've got another call come in, so I'll let you go. Good luck with your shoot this morning, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Yeah,
All
bye.
right. So we actually had my friend, speak of the devil, or the angel, shall I say, Andrejka, calling in. Andrejka, are you there?
Hi.
Hey, you're live and on the air on the Bokeh Podcast Morning Show.
Awesome. This is so great.
We were just finishing up a call with Rich and Heather Smith from Rich Smith Photography here in Chattanooga. Have you all had the chance to meet before?
No, but I listened to your podcast that you were all on together.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a great point. I'm glad that you highlighted that, because some of you who listen to or watch the Bokeh podcast may recognize Rich and Heather Smith do the Workflow Wednesday episodes with us. And so we'll link to those Workflow Wednesday episodes in the show notes as well. But Andrejka, thanks for making time to call in this morning. This is kind of a crazy time, and I just wanted to get your take, maybe your best tip for our listeners on how to best manage this downtime.
Well, it was funny. So the other day I was FaceTiming, Zooming, doing the thing with someone, and I said, I've been saying for years, I wish the world would just slow down so I could catch up with work.
Wow.
This isn't what it meant, but I feel like, oh, wow, okay, well, I asked for this. How am I going to utilize it? And I feel like I'm the type of person who, for the last 14 years, I haven't sat and watched TV without guilt. I always have my laptop in front of me, and I'm learning how to be really super productive, but then also how to be really super not productive without any guilt.
Yeah, well, because
last night I sat and watched TV with no computer and no phone, just actually watched TV.
Isn't that a funny thing? I mean, we have a tendency, I think, as photographers to multitask quite a bit. Yes. So we're only ever halfway enjoying a show and halfway focusing on our work. It's nice to actually just focus on one thing at a time and be present.
That's exactly it. I think we're all learning how to be present. I know, and this is temporary. Our world's gone through so much stuff. Mother Earth is strong. We're strong. It's temporary. And it's, as all the little memes are saying, it's how we're going to end up on the other side. It's funny. I received a painting from a friend of mine about my favorite poem, Leaves of Grass, about a week before all this stuff happened. And I don't know if anyone out there and the Leaves of Grass poem, but it's the one that I sing myself and celebrate myself. And what I shall assume, you shall assume that every atom belongs to me as well belongs to you. I don't know a lot of poetry, but that's it.
Wow.
But the whole concept is we're all leaves of grass, and we're all individual, and we all have a root system.
And that's like, this whole thing makes me think we're all in it alone with our grass system, but together we make a huge, gigantic, beautiful lawn.
I love that.
The more we build our root system, which is what we're having an opportunity to do in our own homes, and build, the bigger and brighter our lawn will be.
Wow. I mean, the beauty of community, if we're willing to just kind of come together and support each other and help each other through this time. And I love that we're doing that actively right now with this morning show. But I appreciate both the suggestion to be present, as well as the reminder of the importance of community. And I just saw a headline or an article somewhere just a little bit ago that was saying physical distancing, not social distancing, right? Like that's.
I love that. I saw that yesterday too. Yeah, I feel like, it's funny. At the turn of the year, I was at a business group and we did vision boards, and everyone was talking about this work-life balance. I feel like, and I think you thinking about what I wanted to say, I'm actually finding really, truly what work-life balance is in these moments. Like, I know tomorrow is going to be another day, and I have time to get things done tomorrow. Like, I woke up today, I'm going to stay in bed because tomorrow I can stay in bed. It's like Groundhog's Day, but in a good way. Like, every day I can do the same thing, which is how we should be living our life anyways. We always have the next day to finish what we didn't finish.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. And I've personally found so much enjoyment, even relief. I think for whatever reason, this situation has put me in a place where I'm not only excited to create, but I'm soaking in the opportunity. Like it feels good to think proactively and to create content that will hopefully bring value to the industry, and to do so consistently, figure out how we can, every possible way we can do that with the time that we have. And it's really exciting. It's funny how, or maybe not so funny, how during so-called normal times, it's easy to get caught up into busy work and get run down by it and not be producing and creating and adding in something of value. And so I love that. It's Groundhog Day, like you said, in the best way possible. I think that's a great way to sum this up. Just really quick before I let you go, though, you mentioned watching a show. Is there a particular show that you recommend for our listeners at the moment?
Oh my gosh, I just discovered a show that I haven't heard anyone talk about. So if anyone out there does not have Apple Plus, there's a 7-day free trial, and all you need is 7 days of a pandemic, and you can watch all their great shows and get a lot of work done. So last night I discovered Little America. Have you heard of it?
I'm not sure if I have.
I don't think people are talking much about it, but Little America is only 8 episodes, and each episode is about a different immigrant experience in America. And they're all different types, from Nigerian to Mexican to, like, you name the culture, and they have it. And they all take places, some in the 70s, some in the 80s, some current day. And they're all really heartfelt and really uplifting, and just all based on true stories of true immigrants in America.
Wow.
It's so good.
Okay.
I ugly cried at the end of the episode.
No. I you know what? I feel you. I mean, as much as maybe people don't realize this, I'm a pretty emotional guy too. And movies or shows, man, I can ugly cry as well. So I get it. I feel you.
But Little America is a great one.
Perfect. All right. Well, I appreciate you making time to call in, Andrejka, and shout out to you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
You too. So great to hear your voice, friend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. That's awesome. Well, I think we're getting ready to wrap things up, at least for this inaugural episode. And I want to make sure that you all know we're going to be putting more content putting out another episode, a morning show. We'll probably do it again this Friday. Give it a day or so to sink in, get a little bit of feedback from those who may have listened in. Oh, it looks like we've got another call coming in. Let me just pull this. Oh, and it went away. Oh, well, maybe they'll call back. Nonetheless, we've got, we'll push this out on later today on the audio side. Of course, the video will live at facebook.com/Bokeh Podcast. And then we'll probably shoot or do another episode this coming Friday. So Friday, March 27th, 9 a.m. Eastern, facebook.com/Bokeh Podcasts. And the number, please do call in. 423-451-6283. And Dawn just commented on Facebook. She said, "I've loved listening today." Thanks, Dawn, for listening in. I appreciate that. We're going to try at least one more of these, maybe a couple more of these. And I hope you find some entertainment from it, a bit of education, maybe a little bit of inspiration, learn a little bit of news. If you're not keeping up with news, we'll share a little bit of that. And I just want to encourage everybody, again, as we close today, please make sure to focus on the things that you can control. Control is an interesting topic that we could spend hours on if we wanted to. The reality is we can't control what is going on outside of us right now with the coronavirus and all that's associated with it. What we can control is how we spend our time in the meantime. And it would be easy to get fixated on the fact that we're not generating the revenue we normally do, or maybe not generating revenue at all. But my suggestion to you is not to focus on that, because if you focus on that, you fixate on that, it's going to be debilitating, period. And you can get sucked in and get depressed and go to binge eating, or whatever the thing is that you might do. Don't go that direction. I encourage you to fixate on what you can do, the thing that you can control, which is right now how you manage your time, and more specifically, how you manage the time for the sake of creating, whether it's refining your business or coming up with a plan, a strategy for what you're going to do when the world goes back to at least semi-normal and you can start shooting again, you can start booking clients again. What is that going to look like? Don't just leave it up to chance, but plan for that. That is a way right now that you can be strategic and ultimately proactive in the management of your time. I'd highly encourage you to do that. And I appreciate anybody who has been watching and or listening. And for those of you who might listen to this episode later, please come join the party on Friday, March 27th. So 2 days from now, 9 a.m. Eastern. Friday, March 27th, 9 a.m. Eastern, facebook.com/Bokeh Podcast. And if you're watching right now, of course, you'll see this scrolling across the bottom. What do they call those? Ticker tapes? The old school TV reference. But 423, this is the number that you're scrolling here, 423-451-6283. And we'll kind of get the word out a little bit between now and Friday and maybe get a few more calls in. Would love to hear from you. We're going to share some news about 9 to 9:15. 9:15 or so is when calls can start coming in. I'll accept calls and would love to hear your thoughts. I'll keep you posted on the topic for Friday. Follow us at facebook.com/Bokeh Podcast. And more ideally, actually, and where we're probably more active just in general, if you go to instagram.com/Bokeh, Bokeh Podcast. Follow us there. Not only our feed, but stories. We'll keep you posted on the upcoming show for Friday. Thank you all so much. This has been a lot of fun. I'm glad we did this. I hope to see you on Friday, and we'll talk to you all more soon. Have an absolutely wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening to the Bokeh Podcast. Will you let us know what you thought by leaving a review of the podcast in the Apple Podcast app? And I'd love to hear from you personally with your thoughts about the podcast and suggestions about future topics and guests for the show. My email is nathan@photographersedit.com. The Bokeh Podcast is brought to you by Milu, the simplest way for photographers and coordinators to collaborate on shot lists and timelines for weddings, parties, and other amazing events. Visit Milu, MIILU.com. This podcast is also brought to you by Photographer's Edit, custom image editing for the professional photographer. Visit photographersedit.com.